Welcome back, friends, colleagues, comrades, to the Positive Adjustment Show. We have a special guest. Of course, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Mark Skapanitz, What's It Worth Appraisal Services in Georgia. And as you can see, we are here with the OG, the appraiser coach, Mr. Dustin Harris from Idaho. How are you, my friend?
Oh, couldn't be better, my friend. Thank you so much. I'm glad you called me special. I've been called worse, but I'll take special. Thank you.
Well, yeah, at least you understand where that was coming from. I appreciate it. We're super honored to have you on. This is, of course, our first guest that we've had on the Positive Adjustment Show. And we talked about this early on, and it was just no question. We didn't even make a list. Like, who do we want to have on? We said, without a doubt, first guest has to be Dustin Harris, the appraiser coach. We're all good friends. Yeah, so that everybody knows. Of course, huge shout out to Dustin from me. I do the Real Value podcast. Dustin was the first person to have me on his show as an interview. And I just can't tell you what that meant to me by doing that. We've become good friends since. As you all know, Dustin is one of the strongest, most intelligent voices in the appraisal industry today, as far as I'm concerned. He's got well over 500. I think I saw, what was it yesterday? 520 episodes, maybe 524, something like that. And in 5 years, so he just celebrated his 500th episode not too long ago, a couple months ago, did a great episode called 5, I think, the top 5 interviews. Yeah, and Mark Skapanitz was one in that top 5, which Mark never lets us forget. But all of us are math magicians here. We're appraisers. So if you do the math, there are 52 weeks in a year. I was going to say 50 because we always take some time off. There are 52 weeks in a year. If you multiply 52 weeks times 10 years, that would be 520 episodes. You got 10 years worth of episodes crammed into 5 years. And I think that's a huge accomplishment. That means basically 2 episodes a week. You are a content monster. You never seem to run out of interesting things to talk about. And that is on top of course, those of you who are in some of his coaching groups, that is on top of the lives that you do while driving through God's country and showing us the mountains and the mountain goats and the sheep and all the other stuff, but always disseminating great information. So again, thank you. We're very honored to have you on the show, Dustin.
Well, thank you, Blaine. I have to tell you an anecdotal story. When I decided to do a podcast, I didn't know if there would be enough content, honestly. And I sat down one day with my pen and my paper, and I like to brainstorm old-fashioned style. So I sat down with my paper and my pen, and I started writing out. And I told myself if I could come up with 52 topics that I could talk about on my show, then I'm good to go. I'm going to go forward with a podcast. And by the time I was done sitting down, I had over 100, and I thought, well, I guess I better do 2 a week. So that's what we've done.
Now, I apologize because I came into this late. I think I probably started listening to the Appraiser Coach maybe around episode 300 or so. And then in addition to producing my own and all that, I haven't made it back to episode 1. What was the first episode about?
Oh boy. I'm guessing it was just a little bit of a bio and just kind of establishing some credibility moving forward, just who I am and why I'm on the microphone. Probably nothing huge. It was just kind of an establishment.
And what was your go ahead, Mark.
It was probably entitled Seek the Truth, and that's why, we keep going with that. But
yeah,
it's cool though. This is really cool, even just to get really in here before Blaine keeps going on and on and on and on. Let me just, what's cool for me is to be sandwiched in between you guys right now like this, because, you guys have both been instrumental in me doing my blogs and starting the podcast. So it's really cool to be live with you guys and doing this episode with you guys. So thank you. I really appreciate it. It's really cool.
Well, the reason
thanks, Mark. Likewise.
Yeah, the reason we have you sandwiched in between is because it makes it much easier to edit you out afterwards, and then just put Dustin and I together. So
works.
I kid. Before we go on to the main topic of the show, I just want to kind of go on with this line of questioning because now I'm curious. Dustin, what was the impetus that drove you to start the Appraiser Coach podcast?
That is such an interesting question. Yeah. I love teaching. It is my passion. It is my mission in life. I like appraising. In fact, I really like appraising. I would almost say I love appraising, but I absolutely have a passion for teaching. And I am an avid podcast listener, all kinds of shows all the time. I listen to podcasts much more than I read or even listen to audiobooks. And it just was a natural fit. It was something I was used to doing myself. And I thought to myself, interesting, because appraisers spend a lot of time in their car, a lot of time driving to and from appointments. I thought it was just a great medium to get that information out to appraisers.
Yeah. Well, and you're a great teacher. So
well, thank you.
You do a great job in getting out to everybody, not just appraisers, because, you know, there was that one episode I was on with you out of what 4 or 5 we've done, but I walked into a house and a realtor, an actual realtor, was like, "Hey, you're the Mark Skevnes I was on the Appraiser Coach," and that's what's cool, is when you get recognized that way and you see what you're doing out there and how it reaches other people. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I have to say, oh yeah, you're much smarter than I am, because I did a podcast about podcasting, and the research shows that the average person is in the car 24 minutes. And I think your average podcasts are about a half an hour. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Where mine are always an hour or more. But they're just great.
You do have a tendency to ramble a little bit.
Oh, you're not kidding.
I'm kidding, Wayne. I listen to every minute and I hang on your every word.
No, I appreciate you, my friend. So today's topic, we wanted to kind of talk about, you just did an awesome webinar. For those of you who weren't on the webinar, what was the title of it?
I think it was called Coronavirus, or maybe COVID-19 and the Future of Appraising, something like that.
Yeah. And you talked about things that appraisers could and should be doing at this time. I just put a podcast out today called 7 Things That You Should Be Doing Right Now, which is kind of along those same lines. Mark and I have been talking about it, things that appraisers should be doing during this time. So let's get right into what you think the top things are that appraisers should be doing during this time.
Oh, it's a great question. So these are, what's interesting about this is I like to teach principles, and I like to teach principles that last the test of time. In my mind, a principle is the same no matter what is going on outside. So we might be in unprecedented times, and we might be dealing with things that none of us have ever dealt with before, because history has never dealt with something quite like this before. Right. But the principles that I teach 6 months ago are going to be the same principles that I'm teaching today. And so with that as a backdrop, number one, work on your business. I'm a big fan of taking time on a regular basis to work on your business, not in your business. What does that mean? That means that you take a break from doing inspections, that you take a break from doing write-ups and choosing comps and making adjustments and market studies and everything else, to actually work on what's working in your business and focus on that. And also work on what's not working in your business and make sure that you increase or do better with those things, and focus on your goals and your vision and where you want your business to go. What a great opportunity right now. Many of us are kind of forced into, if you will, this downtime, this quote unquote quarantine or stay at home. What an awesome opportunity to say, you know what, I don't ever usually get time to work on my business, but I certainly can now. And along with that is personal growth. So the second thing that I would talk about is taking some time to educate yourself. Get your CE in. But I'm a big fan of not just focusing on CE every year, the stuff that you're required to do, but also take some time to self-educate and to grow in some things that you want to do. Learn some new skills. ERC appraisals, manufactured homes, luxury homes, all of these things that you can educate yourself on now because you're home anyway, that can then serve you down the road. And then the third thing that I would share is an opportunity to grow outside the niche that you're used to. For example, taking an opportunity to grow your non-lender business. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Dustin, we're locked up in our houses. We can't go speak to realtors. We can't go speak and take lawyers out to lunch and this, that, and the other. Well, folks, be creative. I mean, right now, Blaine and Mark, we're sitting right here talking, and we're in 3 different states, and we can see each other, we can communicate. I mean, the technology is there for you to get together with other people. Take an opportunity to do it, and do it now.
Yeah.
Well, that falls into, on your point, on your number 3, like you said, we're all sitting here, but that also falls into, this is a time for a lot of the people out there that don't understand social media, that don't really understand what they're doing or how to go about creating certain, content and getting to these people. This is the time to learn that and learn how you can actually get yourself out there, not just maybe by camera, but get yourself out there, build yourself a online pages, start communicating in groups, start researching all the stuff you can, and start just dropping content and dropping stuff about your business and how you can help people and what you can do right now you could actually, as appraisers, we're essential. This may sound a little silly, but you could probably reach out to a bunch of realtors in your area that are not allowed to do anything. And you could actually reach out to them. Hey, can I help you with one of your houses that you have a listing for? Do you need me to stop by and check up on it? Do you need anything? Do you need me to, you want me to go in, do some stuff? Maybe you could start helping people that way as well and start building those relationships that way. So, there's lots of ways you could start to spend your time in a positive, right direction. And that can go with social media.
Great idea. Yeah, great idea. We just did a live broadcast. We obviously have done these things. I'm sure Dustin has as well. So we already have kind of built up a couple of these. In fact, I talk about on the podcast today, building your tribe. I also call it building your dojo. But this is your virtual auditorium of people, potential market that you can be adding value to constantly. And I've been doing live updates almost every day, market updates to this group. It's up over 600 people. Great appraiser in Connecticut, Tammy Heber. She's got a similar group. It's up over 1,000 agents and lenders, constant activity. And they're always looking to us for information and updates on these things. So great idea. You may not be into social. I'm not into social media personally. I'm not a selfie guy. I've never seen you guys doing a bunch of selfies and things like that. Even if you're not into it personally, it can be utilized for your business big time. Dustin, you have any thoughts on that?
You haven't seen the shots of me with my shirt off?
I have not, but I expect a whole slew of private pics to come across now.
I've had a group for a couple of years now. And by the way, this idea came from my mastermind group. I've got 6 mastermind groups across the nation. Last week, we met virtually. I was supposed to be in Dallas and I was supposed to be in Salt Lake, but of course with what's going on, we decided to meet virtually. It turned out to be an awesome meeting. We had about 6 to 8 people in those meetings, and we focus on individual goals and visions and ideas and thoughts and struggles. And you've got a whole team of people there helping each other. And one of the things that came to me about 2 years ago from another member of my mastermind team was putting together a Facebook group called Ask the Appraiser. It's a local group. I don't let anybody in outside my local area because the influence I want to have is with the local market. And we talk constantly about numbers and ideas and thoughts and questions. And people come in and a realtor will say, hey, I just had an appraisal done and the guy dinged me for paint on a fence. Is that, what in the world's going on? I understand the house was built prior to 1978, but hey, what's the deal with the fence?
Yeah.
And we answer those questions. And right now is such an important time because let's face it, a lot of people have a lot of fear and they're looking to be consoled. They're looking for experts. They're looking for people to say, it's okay. Things are going to get better. Okay. This is the positive adjustments broadcast, right? So let's be positive. Let's look forward, but let's get through this together. And right now, I'm finding that I'm updating that page much more frequently than I have in the past.
Well, a lot of people have time to be on social media. Every time we go live, there's 20, 30 people instantly on it, agents and lenders, because they're homebound. They're sitting inside and they're scrolling Facebook for updates and keeping in touch with their people. So great time to be doing it. Dustin, you said something on the first question about working on it, not in it. I want to kind of go back to that because I know in my coaching groups, in your coaching groups from teaching people that when we start talking, and by the way, this is the classic Michael Gerber E-Myth concept of stepping away, taking off the hat, the multiplicity of hats that we wear, and putting on your business owner and entrepreneur hat to work on the business, vision planning, things like that. What we find when we say that is sometimes eyes glaze over because just saying it means one thing. Actually knowing what to do when we say work on, of course, we just gave an idea about working on. But talk to us a little bit about first steps of working on instead of it. Somebody stops working in, what do they do now?
Well, man, it's such a great question because it's such a hard thing for people to do. And I've been doing it for 10 years and it's still hard for me to do.
Yeah.
Number one, you've got to schedule it. You have to put it on your calendar. And I tell my mastermind groups, if you had an appointment to go see 123 Any Street and do a walkthrough observation for an appraisal, you would not miss that appointment. If you have an appointment with yourself to work on your business, you've got to look at it the same way. at 4:00 on Monday afternoon, I have an appointment to work on my business, and I'm not going to be late to that appointment. The second thing they've got to do is turn off distractions. That means I don't work on my business when my wife and kids are there to bother me. In fact, I found the best time for me is actually Monday morning early, about 5 or 6 in the morning, because nobody else is awake. Nobody else is going to bother me on my phone, even though I put that aside anyway. But that's the time for me to work on it. But your question is more about what does that look like? What do we do? I can tell you that the number one thing that I do is review what I call my vision story for the year. My vision story is the path that I want to take this year. And I always write my vision story in past tense, by the way. I date it a year ahead, but I date it as if it's already happened. In other words, I date it ahead, but I write it as if it's happened. So I'm so grateful that this year, and I just lay out what happened this year. So each time I work on my business, I reflect on that and say, okay, where am I with my goals and my vision and my idea and this story that I want to paint, both personally and on my business. And then I start to get into the details as to what I can do to actually make that happen. What is going right? What is going wrong? How can I fix those things and tweak those things to become better?
Yeah, great advice. Mark, you have any input on that?
Actually, I did this with Dustin when I was taking one of his, he invited me to take one of his mastermind classes out in Vegas, which was awesome. And, I learned a lot from it. And, I'm taking yours as well and, kind of combining them both. But yeah, this was something that he had mentioned when we were there, and something I really didn't take that much advantage of because I came back and just got too busy doing things. But I think it's starting to sink in a lot more time on my business and working, and things are getting better and better and better. And I'm getting better clients and doing better things. Plus I'm in a different mind frame and a different place and time now. But, yeah, I agree 1,000% that there's got to be a time and place for your business. You say it as well, Blaine. You have to put some time away. I've been putting time away. It's kind of hard now with the wife being home and working from home all the time. But I will take my iPad and I will go sit in my car if I have to, and just sit outside and just get what I can get done on my business and make sure I'm working the right way. I have a long ways to go, but that's why there's two great coaches right here.
Yeah, Blaine, I think if you look at the numbers, 98% of the world kind of just does whatever is in front of them at the time.
You got it.
We get up, we're creatures of habit. We do these things over and over and over again. It's the 2%, and it's interesting. It's the 2% that are quote unquote successful, right? That actually plan their lives and their business.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You guys both said something very important. I want to put some what I call cheese to it, some numbers. So Mark just said something very important. He came back from Dustin's mastermind and he just got busy. And that happens. It happens to a lot of people because basically what Dustin said, which is if we don't schedule it, we don't make it important. We don't do it. And I think I know why most people don't understand the value. It's because when you've got an appraisal order on your desk, you know exactly what that is worth. It's worth $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. You know what that's going to pay for. You know what it feels like in your pocket and how many eggs it buys and a car payment and all that other stuff. So you go do it. What a lot of people don't realize is the value, the multiplied value. When you take that hour to do vision planning and goal setting, you might be doing a $40,000 1-hour session in the grand scheme of things. You can do a $400 appraisal in an hour or 2 or 6 or whatever people's time frames are, or you can sit down every week, 2 times a month, whatever it is, guaranteed it's going to add tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to your years over the lifetime of your business. Guaranteed. Absolutely. The problem is those who don't do it, they never see it. They never know that calculation. But it's almost like you have to develop a little bit of faith to go, you know what? If I take this hour or 2 to sit down and do it, there's gonna be a return.
I mentioned earlier that I've got 6 mastermind groups. I actually have 7 because I've got an online mastermind group as well. And these are mastermind groups that I host for appraisers, but I also belong to a mastermind group that has no appraisers in it, no real estate agents in it. It's simply business owners here in the Idaho Falls area. We meet monthly. And I can tell you, Blaine, without a doubt, every single time they schedule that, it never meets up nicely with my schedule. Mm-hmm. It's always on a day that's challenging. It's always on the day that I've got other inspections that I'm going to have to tweak and move around. But I'm telling you, every single time, even though I kind of grumble, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll make time for this thing. Every time it's been beneficial to me. And I tell my mastermind group, when I'm meeting with other appraisers, that the most dollars per hour that you're ever going to make is going to be when you're working on your business. I call it on-y time, on it, not in it time.
You bet.
This is something that I find intriguing listening to you guys and being part of both of your stuff, is that when I went to Dustin's and I was out in Vegas, I was surrounded by, what do we have? Maybe 10 other people there.
Sure.
I think at that time.
Yeah.
And hearing their stories, hearing, the things that they struggled with, are similar to the things I hear in our other coaching class with Blaine. I hear the same struggles, but what I heard out in Dustin's was I heard a lot of people who have been a part of it for so long and invested their time and their money and everything into it to build their businesses. I heard the success stories.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it myself. I'm sitting here going, wow, I'm struggling. I'm just making my money and whatever. And, I'm a crappy business owner, whatever, I'm trying to learn. But yet there's people out there saying, well, look, we make goals and, we're going to pay off our house in 3 months. And we've hired all these people and we've done this and we're making more money than ever just by taking the time to actually start learning things. So for me, I'm still in the beginning stages of it, of combining things and still learning how to do things, but I'm starting to see the turn a little bit. I mean, I had to concentrate on myself first before I could get involved with doing all this other stuff. But now I'm starting to see how my business is starting to make more money. I'm building more money, but it's not just about the money. It's about how I'm running it as well. So I would advise people out there that if they're really looking for a way to increase their business and a way to make things better, it's find a coach. It could be a business coach. It could be one of you guys. It could be anybody out there that has the experience and knowledge to make you better. I highly, highly suggest it.
And it doesn't have to be an appraiser. It can be so many other people. These are true principles that work no matter what your small business is, no matter what your situation in life is.
Yeah. And Mark, you said something really important. You talked about the struggle. Just because you just to use this topic, we're talking about hiring a coach or whatever. I too have a coach like Dustin that's not an appraiser. Just because you start to do that stuff doesn't all of a sudden mean things just start sailing smoothly. Actually, life gets more difficult. Life gets more difficult because you have somebody holding you accountable and you actually have to do the stuff. Otherwise, the coach fires you and they go, look, I just can't keep talking to you every month about the same stuff and you're not doing it. You're wasting your time and your money. So when you take that burden on, that benevolent burden, if you will, of working on your business, not in it, you're adding more work. You're adding more creative and thought time. You have to sit down and actually imagine what the next year, 3, 5, and 10 could look like. Not will, but could. And then you develop some faith that it will turn out to do that. But you then have to hold yourself, like Dustin said, you open it up every morning and you look at it. It's more work. You have to become disciplined to actually do it.
It actually goes into a little bit more as well, is that when you start to make these changes and these positive changes, like get away from AMC work to try and get more private work, you're also got to remember that it's not going to be easy that way as well. You really have to work at it and work, because by trying to get away from work that you're normally accustomed to and getting to go towards more private, you got to understand there's going to be some challenges there. There's going to be some bumps in the road. You may not get all the work that you want right away. So you're going to have to suffer for a little bit in order to build that part. But if you keep the right mind frame, if you keep working hard at it, if you keep finding the different ways, you might just make something out of it.
Amen.
Yeah. Dustin, you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I think it's been said, but I will say this. Looking back, I was working probably 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, and honestly living hand to mouth. I mean, it was one of those, I had no savings. If I lost an order, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I thought I was a pretty good appraiser, but I certainly was not a very good business owner. And all of a sudden I took a step back and started working on my business, started working on my education, started understanding what makes people successful, and then started taking those principles and putting them into the appraisal world. Yep. Right. This was about 12 years ago. And the first 4 to 5 years were a struggle because I was trying to implement these principles and they didn't work quite right. And I had to fall on my face several times. And all of a sudden it started to work and it started to mesh and I started to do better. And then I had an opportunity, of course, to reach out and to teach others as well. But during this time, I was a part of a mastermind group, again, not appraiser related, but I was also being mentored and coached by the same individual that is still my mentor and coach today. So for about 10 years, we've been together. He follows up with me on a weekly basis, if not more often than that. In fact, just yesterday, we had a 45-minute talk while I was driving. Great guy, very successful in his own right. And I can honestly say, Blaine, when I look back at the success that I had, it comes from two places. And sometimes I don't know where it came from because it happened at the same time. It came from a mentor and a coach, and it came from a mastermind group. It didn't come from working harder and getting more orders and pushing and struggling and everything else. It came from stepping back and saying, oh, law of delegation, technology, procedures. These things work no matter what your chosen career is.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about it all the time. We are the bottlenecks in our own businesses. Usually the answer is get out of your own way. You'll see the flow open up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dustin, any other thoughts on things that appraisers should be doing during this time after working on it, not in it? A couple other things that they should be potentially focused on heavily.
You know, I've talked to a lot of appraisers over the last little while, and I'm blessed to be able to surround myself with a lot of positive appraisers. I try to avoid the negativity, and I know it's out there. And there's a lot of negative comments and people, let's just be honest, that hate their job, hate the people that they work for, hate what they're doing. I try to avoid those types of people. I try to stay positive, and I've got the all-star team and the dream team and everything else to surround myself with. But even surrounding myself with very positive people, there's still some fear out there. There's still some unknowns out there. And I think that those things coincide, right? When we don't know, we have fear. And in fact, I heard a story once about a guy who DVR'd a game. Let's call it a football game. I don't remember the whole story. But he DVR'd the game because he wanted to watch it later. He had something else going on, right? It was a big game, and he was excited. It was his team, right? And he said to everybody, "Don't tell me what happened. Don't tell me what happened. Don't." Right? And so he got about halfway through, and I think he got a text or something about, the big win, right? And basically destroyed what was going to happen. And he said, I didn't enjoy the last, even though it was a nail bar, I knew what the results were. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any fear, and that fear driving excitement, right? That's what we do when we attend a sports game. What will happen? He already knew the outcome. And I will say to my fellow appraisers right now, folks, this is not the book. This might be a chapter in the book. I have no idea how long this COVID-19 thing will go. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how many states are going to go on mandatory shutdown. I don't know. I do know this. This too shall pass. And so now is the time to be preparing for that time. I promise you we will come out of this. I promise you we will be better for it. I just don't know the timing.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's an important point too. Your story is apropos because a lot of people don't know what to do with fear. Fear is crippling, as we know, and many people don't know what to do with it. And I learned a lesson many, many years ago. If you can learn to turn fear into excitement, they're the same basic wavelength, except excitement takes you up and excited for the future, obviously, where fear just keeps you going down, down, down. Your vision closes in and you see less and less opportunity. So we have to get positive about all of this, take the fear and figure out how to turn into excitement for opportunity, excitement for the future, be excited about some of the changes. They will come. I think you would agree. There are going to be some changes. We don't know what they're going to be, but things can't go back to normal. They just don't. Every time something like this happens, it's going back to a new normal. One of the things that I talked about in today's podcast on that note is your survival accounts. Folks, if you don't have some kind of survival account, it's really tough to start it when you're in the midst of fear and you're in the middle of a survival plan. As I said in the podcast, you don't put a survival plan into play in the midst of chaos. You put the plan into play long before you need it. And that's why we encourage people all the time, be building up a survival account, which is minimum 3 months of your personal and business expenses. Once you get that funded, then we talk about going to 4, 5, 6 months or more. But you can right now still, if you haven't done it, we call it front loading. Make sure you're front loading your survival account. You got a bunch of checks coming in. Look at your expenses. Look at your family budget as well as your business budget. Cut out things you don't need, stuff that's not non-essential and not adding value to your end product and service. And then front load your survival account. Just put some cash away, put some cash aside, because we don't know what the future is going to hold. But probably good to be building that up. And Mark, anybody disagree with that? I know you've been working on it.
No, I agreed. I've actually been working on my stuff that I've been learning and actually putting money away, and it's actually quite nice. I mean, this is actually it's weird to say, but my wife and I were talking about it. It's actually kind of a blessing that we're kind of like stuck where we are, because we haven't been going out and spending all this money on things we don't need right now. And it's kind of weird because we spent a lot of money on food, but we're not spending money on all these other things we don't need. And I'm seeing my bank account every time I get a check come in or something just going up and up and up and up. And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute here. How is it possible I have all this money? And when I went back and looked at things, I looked and said, whoa, I haven't been spending as much as I did the last couple of the months prior. So that's a big eye opener. But to go on what else you guys are saying is I think now is just the time to focus on what we can control. You know, we say that all the time, focus on what you can control. We can't control what the government's going to do. We can't control who's going to put out these orders or who's going to give you orders, who's going to make things, you know, exteriors or what. We can't control any of that. All we can control is what we do, how we want to do it, and how we're going to run our businesses and just abide by everything that's out there. And once you start losing that control and that focus and start going off on the uncertainties, what's going to happen if this happens, you're just a mess and you're just a lost cause at that point, in my opinion. You know, I think it's, you know, just focus. My wife has been getting a lot of anxiety from her work because she's working from home as a teacher. And she starts thinking about all these things and watching all the different TV shows and what's going on with this COVID-19 and what we can do. And she gets all this anxiety. And I have to keep saying to her, God, like, sweetheart, just stop. You can only control what you can control. You can't control this. So why are you worried about it?
Yeah.
And, you know, it really is. It's all you can do is just control what you can.
Absolutely agree. Dustin, any parting thoughts?
Great advice. I would also say one of the things that we can control is how we react and how we help others to react. This is an awesome opportunity to connect. I know that we've talked about social distancing, right? But you know, Blaine, Mark, there's no way I can get COVID-19 over video, right? It's an awesome opportunity to connect with others, to find opportunities to bless the lives of others. Last night, Ryan Lundquist reached out to just a group and said, hey, I want to have a virtual beer with anybody that wants to have one in about 30 minutes. Anybody want to jump on the Zoom meeting? And I grabbed my kombucha and turned it on, and we just talked. I mean, there wasn't even an agenda. And we had, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 other people on there that I'd never even met. And I got to know, and we just talked. They weren't necessarily appraisers. These were just friends of Ryan, and we just talked and said, hey, how are you handling this? And what are you guys doing? And you know, this connection that we can have right now that we didn't have before is perfect. And the opportunity to share with one another. I would never be a judge of somebody who decides to do interior inspections right now. I would say, let's put our health and our safety first, right? But if you as a business owner make that business decision, that's your decision. And I'm not going to be down on you and judgmental of you. And there's others that say, I'm not going to do interior inspections for whatever reason. And I wouldn't judge those people either. But we had an awesome opportunity. I think it was yesterday, Mark, on 100% Appraisers. There was an appraiser by the name of Carol who jumped on there and said, hey, there's a bunch of us that have decided not to do inspections. There's a bunch of us that have decided to do inspections. I think we can all agree we're super busy and it's hard to keep up with the volume. Why don't we help each other out? You go do inspections. You teach me a little bit about your market and I'll do the write-ups. And all of a sudden, both of us are happy. What an awesome idea.
Great idea. Yeah. Carol actually just messaged me earlier before the show because I commented and said, great, beautiful idea. One of the best we've heard so far. Here's somebody thinking creatively and trying to help other appraisers out. And that's what this is all about. Well said, Dustin. It's called leadership. It's helping your fellow man. It's helping everybody elevate. And this is when, you know, we say it all the time, these kind of times people operate either out of inspiration or desperation. And I think we really have to focus on inspiring, leading. Leaders emerge in times like this. And I think it's important to keep sending that message. Do what you can to emerge as a leader and operate from inspiration.
Well, you know what's interesting about this is, maybe I'm saying too much here, but I'm a guy that I'm very open, right? I'll be honest with you. When this first started, I've spent a lot of time, money, energy, and years building up the all-star team and the dream team. And my thought was, we're gonna see some challenging financial things, and appraisers might start to cut back. And one of the first places that people cut back, and is probably the last place they should, is marketing. Yep. And then the second is education, right? Because those things aren't necessary. Yep. You know what's interesting about this, Blaine, is we've actually seen a huge increase in the number of all-star team members in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Because I think appraisers get it. They understand that right now, more than anything, we need each other. Yeah. We need a community of positive people that are coming together with ideas and thoughts on how we can make it through whatever length of time we need to, because we will emerge, we will get on the other side of this, and we will be better for it.
I agree. Absolutely agree. And on that note, gentlemen, I really appreciate both of you being on. Appreciate your insights, Dustin, Mark. This is the Positive Adjustment Show, and I think we have delivered on that. There's lots of takeaways from this. I'm certainly going to go. I feel better leaving this show and going out into the world positive. I hope you both do as well. And of course, all the listeners, hopefully you all do as well. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being on. Dustin, thank you very much for taking your little time out of your super busy schedule. We know you're really busy. Please stay safe, everybody. Stay 6 feet away from everybody, and go out and make some positive adjustments. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Blaine. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dustin.
Bumps from everybody. Appreciate it. Boom.